Having adapted Hardy before, one difficulty is there's a lot of story in Hardy, there's a lot of plot, and so when you're making a film, you're having to rush through areas of story in order to get to the next bit of story, and you don't have time to kind of settle down and be with the characters. And combined with that, it seems to me that although I love Tess as a novel, and I love Hardy, that both Angel and Alec in the book are quite frustrating characters because they're so simplistically divided between Alec being the sensual lover and Angel being spiritual, that they're both incredibly frustrating. And actually, I think Alec is actually the more interesting character and develops a little bit more through the story, whereas Angel remains frustratingly kind of out of contact with sort of half of his kind of out of contact with his body and half of his character. So, and it seemed to me that Hardy, if you think about Hardy's personal life, Hardy was clearly aware that most people have a sensual kind of side to their love and a spiritual side, but just decided for whatever reason to kind of divide that in the novel. And it seemed to me it'd be more kind of more interesting, more subtle, more honest, or kind of truthful, kind of emotionally, to make the character have both those aspects, and to see whether you can have the story where really you have a kind of relationship which has the potential to be a positive relationship, but becomes, through various reasons, kind of sort of sour and kind of reduced down to purely a kind of like a sexual transaction, almost like a financial transaction. So it seemed to me it might be more interesting, and also kind of simpler for the film. In the case of how it came about, I was working in Rajasthan. We were looking for locations for Code 46, and it was in Ossian, the place we filmed Trishna, which we didn't actually use in Code 46. But it just struck me then that the kind of lots of aspects of the culture there, the society there, were very similar to the society described in Hardy's novels. The kind of rural England that he describes, especially in his last couple of books, Jude and Tess, is a rural England where sort of that static traditional community is being broken up by railways, by urbanisation, by mechanisation of work on the farm, and all those kind of social forces play into his stories about Tess and Jude. And so it struck me that it would be an interesting thing to set Tess there, especially because having made a film of Jude before, you have things like steam trains, which for Hardy represented technological process, the modern world, the new world, the cutting edge, and then you film them, and they look like some nostalgic kind of sort of romantic idea of how England used to be. So they have this sort of opposite meaning in your film to the meaning they have in the book. So it seemed to me you actually might get a more interesting version of the novel by setting it in a modern context.
I was actually quite amazed that I didn't think of it when I read the book when I was 18 years old. But then when Michael said that he was going to set it in India, I restarted reading the book, and I started reading it in a different context. Now I was thinking of it in terms of how it would fit into a perfect Indian adaptation of the same. And a lot of it made sense. I think, first of all, the first thing that came across to me was the sexual double standards in a way, in terms of how women are treated in a way in rural communities. There's always like the male hierarchy, the father, the head of the family, followed by the women, and that was one of them. And then obviously the industrial modern day India that Michael's talking about, and it made complete sense with thinking about 18th century England and modern day India. And of course, Mumbai is not part of this because it's far, ahead of its time already. But places like Rajasthan, Bihar, Orissa, you have a lot of these smaller places that are catching on right now, and very reminiscent of what 18th century England would be like. And I think all of it made complete sense. And in a way, to have Tess divided between wanting to adopt like modern thinking and at the same time holding her traditional values, that kind of conflict that Tess had, I felt it would be perfect for Trishna from Rajasthan, from Ossian, to have it as well. So it did make a lot of sense, a lot of it.
This is the second time you've worked with a British filmmaker in India. Obviously, you worked with Danny Boyle for Slumdog Millionaire. How would you describe Michael's approach to directing? I mean, from my perspective, he's known for being sort of light, mobile, stripping things down, working with a smaller crew as possible.
Very instinctive, and I think that's what you need for a vibrant country and city for Mumbai. And you need someone to be able to capture it the way it is without changing things, without planting extras at a railway station or a bus station in order to get that feel. You need to get the real vibe, you need to get the sweat, you need to get the heat. And I think what was amazing was Michael, did not treat me like a star. He treated me like one of those people who were walking around the bus station. And so it was going right. It's true.
Sure that's a compliment or not.
No, it is a compliment, because I think when you're playing that kind of a character, you need to be treated like one of those people at the bus station and no different. And so I guess that was the good thing about working with Michael. I never felt like this is a film set. It felt like I am standing at the Jaipur bus station and trying to get somewhere. So it felt very visceral.